the Suicide Monk Podcast, a platform dedicated to fostering open and honest conversations about the deeply sensitive and complex topic of suicide. Before we delve into the narratives and discussions presented here, it's important to emphasize that we are not medical professionals, therapists, or counselors. We do not possess the qualifications to offer clinical advice or treatment. Instead, the Suicide Monk Podcast serves as a safe space for individuals to share their personal stories and experiences, all while preserving their anonymity. We encourage our guests to tell their stories anonymously, recognizing that privacy and anonymity can be crucial for those who wish to share their experiences without fear of judgment or exposure. Our mission is to create a supportive community, raise awareness, and promote understanding, all while emphasizing that seeking professional help is crucial when dealing with mental health issues and suicidal thoughts. If you or someone you know is in crisis, please reach out to a mental health professional or contact the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline at 1-800-273-8255 for immediate assistance. Together, the Suicide Monk Podcast aims to break the stigma surrounding mental health and let those who are struggling know they are not alone.
Welcome to the Suicide Monk Podcast, and I am your host. Today we're going to be listening to a young lady who has struggled with addiction and suicide ideology, amongst other things, trauma and things like that. That's what this podcast is about. So this is going to be a two-part series. So sit back and enjoy, and join us next week as well. Why don't you introduce yourself?
I guess I get to introduce myself with my fake name, which...
Yes, your pseudo-anonymous name.
I decided on Courtney, because...
I like it.
It was a alter ego name given to me by one person, so I figured it's a safe one to use.
Yeah, that's a good one. I like it.
Yeah, it'll work. It'll work. It's fitting.
So... you kind of know the gist of the podcast. It's here to give people a voice that don't necessarily have one on a taboo subject that you're either criticized, condemned, or locked up for. So there's not a lot of voice to it, and there's a lot of voice on the grief side for people that lose loved ones to suicide, but there doesn't seem to be a voice out there for people who want to take their life, who think about it every day, who suffer every day. So that's what the point of this is, and your voice might help somebody else gain their voice.
Yeah, I definitely feel like there's not enough people out there sharing their story, and then not enough people who have necessarily the take I have on it, which I definitely have one of the most taboo takes on like suicide and like suicidal thoughts. Like my experiences with it are definitely criticized amongst peers.
But do you get to talk about it?
I mean, to an extent I do, but I'm one of those people where I'm like, all right, you're going to sit down and listen. Like, you need to hear something, obviously.
Yeah.
But I am not giving somebody the full extent of your background. I feel it's like gives them a chance to weaponize it. And it's sad that we live in a culture where people are using your life experiences as weapons.
Yes, and they often do. And that's the shame of that. And that's the detriment. And usually it's, from my experience, it's out of self-centeredness.
Oh, yeah.
Not just a belief system, but they can't get outside of how they think and the way they think. So it's not necessarily an acceptable thing. And I've talked about this with other people. It's if they feel like they accept it, then they feel like they endorse it, and that's not true. It's if you accept, and I have several really good friends who, talking to them about my path, have said, I respect you enough to, and know you well enough that I want to change your mind, but I totally understand where you're at because I've walked with you. And it's not surprising.
Yeah. I feel like you'll get those people that really understand it. but most people are going to stand up to you and say something that's not even just decredit you in your way of thinking, not stand up to you.
Yeah, I was going to say they're not standing up.
Right. No.
It's actually cowardice to not have a conversation.
Right. But in this society, like, I know I grew up hearing silence is acceptance. You got to speak up against what you don't believe in. No, sometimes you need to shut up and sit down and like listen before you just spout out at the mouth and talk about stuff you don't know.
Yeah, for sure.
But
so let's kind of dive into your story. About how old are you, roughly? Mid-20s?
Early 20s, yeah.
Early 20s, okay.
So, still new at the game of life.
Well, yeah, but, life comes really hard and really fast in a childhood.
Oh, yeah.
It develops who we are as young adults and then pushes us through our adulthood. And then if we can't do anything about what happened to us in our childhood, then we end up the same in our adulthood.
Oh, yeah. I feel like you got to clean the lake out before it freezes over.
Right.
And I feel like 30 is that cutoff. Once 30 hits, the lake is frozen. You're just stuck with whatever trauma you've let smolder in there for years.
Yeah, it definitely becomes harder and harder as you get older and older. But there's wisdom that happens in that also through many years of work. So
yeah, there's definitely learning experiences. I've been noticing more and more and more. Like, I'll get little bits of the trauma that come back and I'll be like, oh, shit. Wow, yeah. Maybe there's something to learn now that I'm kind of growing past it.
Yeah. Well, and managing it better.
Yeah.
Than you probably did especially when it first happened.
Oh, yeah.
So yeah, let's get rolling and let's hear what you have to say.
All right. I'll just start off at the beginning here.
Yeah, please.
I was raised from the beginning in a split household. I was not wanted. I was that, I'm from a big family. There's 5 kids in my family. I was that third kid between my mom and my dad that just was not wanted.
It's not wanted, but it's definitely like way more lackadaisic.
Yeah. Yeah. I grew up not knowing what it meant to have like parents that were together.
Sure.
No point of my life has it been parents who cohesively work together in a positive manner. And for a large extent of my life so far, that was normal to me. I didn't understand that parents like loved each other and functioned and co-parented or just parented.
Right.
So growing up from an early age, I think I accepted the abuse that was happening in my household. I just assumed that it was normal. I really didn't know how to cope with my emotions. Yeah, I was in a toxic situation with parents who were like, they'd pin us kids against the other parent. So it was a split custody, but we'd go back and forth. I think there were bouts with CPS, Child Protective Services, just all this crazy kind of stuff growing up. And I think I firmly remember around, I want to say it was 10 or 11, first feeling like, man, wouldn't it just be easier if I wasn't here? Because of the verbal abuse that would turn physical, that would just keep going. And I just remember a distinct feeling of, oh shit, I don't want to be here anymore. Like, it would kind of be nice if I just disappeared. And being that age, I don't think you understand that that's like suicidal thoughts.
Right.
And for me, I was just like, all right, I guess this is what this is. Shortly after that time, too, is when my older siblings decided to go live with my father rather than stay with my mother. That's when things just got exponentially worse. Because I was the kid that was like, all right, I got to stay and protect mom. I've got to be the mediator here and make sure that she still has someone.
Right.
And then that just ended up having consequences of my mom just like taking it out on me, like hardcore. And she's not that type of person. Both of my parents are awesome people, and I think parenting is the hardest job in the entire world. And I'm not a parent, but you get given a set of tools by your parents, and it's just really difficult if you aren't shown what it means to be a loving parent growing up yourself.
Well, it's hard to have a toolbox that's scattered.
Yeah, it really is. So I don't blame them for any of this. Like, I mean, I have a messed up brain, but it definitely didn't help the situation that I was put in. But
what do you mean you have a messed up brain?
So I didn't find out until later on in life, but I struggle with autism, which is something that people don't really see in me. It's always a shocker to people when they find out that I'm autistic. So I don't have the same thought process as everybody else. A lot of the times I'll have one way of thinking and people will be like, they just don't understand.
Well, it doesn't make sense to them.
I think it's just the lack of emotion I put towards situations. Like, I get emotional just like everybody else, but the emotions don't linger like other people. I might get immediate emotions that are quick, short, and ramped up. So my emotions are always super strong, but they are very quick. And then my brain immediately turns to logic and tries to either write off the situation or just accepts it immediately. So I think I get to a point of closure with situations a lot faster.
So is that detachment, or is that just a symptom of the autism? Is that because I do the same thing. I disassociate with, and I think that happens a lot in people with trauma. There's a disassociation with especially with emotion and feeling, and we feel those feelings. We feel close yet far away. That's a weird thing, but it is. It's like I'm attached to people, but I'm still very, very distant from them, and that's what keeps me alone.
Yeah, I definitely thought that's what it was at first. I definitely thought it was a detachment thing, but I have very strong emotional attachments to people. I did realize it was a processing thing because I have full closure with my trauma, which is insane. Like, I've done a lot of self-diving, therapy, all that kind of stuff. I didn't like therapy, but I did a whole bunch of...
Why not?
I don't know. It felt very, like, camp to me. Like, oh, talk away your problems with a single individual and they're gonna help you out with everything. Like, I went to my therapist for a really long time, and I felt like the whole time it was just me being like, yeah, this is what I struggle with. Like, yeah, I know which trauma is connected with which little attributes of myself.
Right.
And I think it's because my brain has already kind of broken that down for me and connected the dots. With autism, you want to find the patterns. We're huge in finding the patterns. And I think my brain decided to make my trauma like a little puzzle. And it helped me cope, but in like a really messed up way. Like I'm fully, not fully, nobody's ever fully self-aware. All of our brains are a mystery all the time.
Right.
But I'm very self-aware, and I think it's the superpower of autism.
Well, I think it's a superpower of trauma. That's
true.
Like, because I don't know, and I would, I would venture down the road to say that I'm spectrum for sure.
Yeah.
But I'm not sure if that's trauma induced or if that's genetic, because I've looked at this and pretty intensively over the last, 50 years. And what I realize is, I have sensory issues. I have hearing, sound, like all 5 senses are really heightened almost all the time. I always thought that was trauma that created tantrums in me and anger and frustration, but I can be as calm as the day is long, and a noise will send me into fury and it's not even an uncomfortable noise. It's a tone. And I realized that sitting at breakfast one day. I was like, this lady was talking, nothing bad, nothing, not even loud. It was her tone of voice. And I was instantly furious. And I don't know what that is. But again, it's recently discovered. I always thought it was trauma that created the reaction, and maybe it's not.
Which you're not fully wrong there. Trauma-induced autism spectrum disorder is 100% a thing. So it is still really probably trauma-based for you, but it can set off this trauma-based autism, and it might have happened years and years and years ago for you. Yeah. But it can heighten and it can get worse. I feel like not knowing why you're having those feelings, why you're having those emotions, what's causing them can sometimes make them worse. Like when I got diagnosed and I figured out what all these symptoms were and what all these reactions that I was having were caused by, it like enlightenment. Yeah. I was like, damn, okay, this is why I do this. And it made it a bit easier for me to cope with the things that did set me off. Like you said, sounds are a big one for you. Textures are huge for me. Like I can't pick up a microfiber towel. Like I feel like I'm grabbing hell. It is horrible. I'm like, oh, yeah. It's what I assume hell would feel like for us people who have considered suicide. That's my idea.
Microfiber?
Since we're going to hell, microfiber is just...
Microfiber hell?
Yeah, I feel like they're just going to put me in a microfiber suit with like microfiber walls and... I'm going to be trapped there forever.
The rubber room with microfiber everywhere.
Yeah, just don't even put me in the fire. Just put me in microfiber. That's going to set me off.
You want to take a shower? Microfiber.
Right? No water. Microfiber. Yeah, but it's definitely a spectrum, and it definitely can be caused by trauma. So you're not wrong.
Yeah, it's just the hard thing about that is I'm a deep diver in who I am on a regular basis, and I think most people who suffer from trauma generally take a hard look at who they are and why they are the way they are. Now, getting out of that is a whole different aspect of life. You know your surroundings. You know why you are the way you are. You know why you're in the pit that you're in. The question is, how do you build the ladder to get out of it?
Yeah. I definitely built the ladder in such a strange way. Like, I feel like I'll get to that later on.
Yeah.
But I know I can base a lot of it in comedy. Like, oh man, I can have like a traumatic moment and 5 minutes later, I'm making just a messed up joke about it. like that's just who I am. Like everything is a bit in life. Yeah, everything's a bit. Not everybody's a fan of that. Some people don't like the jokes.
Well, dark people have dark jokes, and generally dark jokes are not taken very well unless you're a dark person. So,
oh yeah,
like I can talk about suicide and just be like, yeah, and people will be like, what the hell did you just say? It'd
be like going over a bridge, hard left turn.
Right. It's everybody the sixth sense of humor that happens, and then it's
everybody else in the car is like, maybe not. I'm like, I mean, it was a joke, but.
Oh Right, just a little squiggle.
Yeah.
On the road.
It's like, oh, I gotcha. And myself.
Like, holy shit. We're going to die today.
Right. Yeah.
And I'm not ready. I didn't get to say goodbye.
It's so funny as a person who, not as a heavy extent as I used to, but still kind of deals with the suicidal thoughts. Like, I'll get scared. Like, I'll almost die. I'll be like, oh, that was a close one. And then my brain goes, haven't you wanted that a couple times? And I'm like, oh.
Well, there's a fear.
You're right.
I'll tell you this. I've pushed the limits of cars, motorcycles, just living hard and fast. And I have never been more scared of death until I ventured down this road. I've always sought death, but I've never been more scared of death until now. Because doing the research, talking to the people, telling my friends, which we'll get into that. That's a whole nother gamut of just messed up. But there's some, I want to say there's some altruism in there of when you start telling people that that's the way you're going, that in giving them opportunity to love you for the moment. And if they're good enough friends, they'll walk beside you until that end or until something changes. And that's a very, very uncomfortable place to be for people.
Yeah. It's uncomfortable for the person traveling down that path and the people who choose to stick beside them.
Oh, it's horrific for both parties.
Oh, yeah.
But it's necessary.
Yeah, there's a lot of power in being that friend that walks beside somebody in that path.
And that is one of the big points of this, is that finding people to walk beside others that don't feel like they can talk to anybody. We need to release the pressure of the daunting and haunting task of wanting to die every day.
Yeah.
And if we don't release that, well, for me, it turns into rage. Like just doing this podcast, like I'm on a low grade anger right now. I'm on a low grade depression, but it's because I'm being able to speak out what is going on inside me. Like I've come to my friends and I'm like, I'm gonna go take my life and I love you and I want to say goodbye. And through that process, a lot, and I hate to admit it because I want to complete my task, but a lot of that pressure is starting to release in a really good way. And I'm still angry. I'm actually angry that it's releasing because I want what I want, but I also want to find life and feel joy and move forward.
Yeah. So your brain's over here like, no, this is my path. And then it gets steered off. It's like, all right, this is pretty cool, but like, screw you guys. I still want to be on my path.
Right.
Like,
yeah.
It's so weird.
Well, it's not even screw. It's like, I love you so much, but I can't do this anymore.
The jokingly, like, you guys suck. Like, that term of endearment of, yeah. It's so crazy how stuck our brains will get on. And I say stuck because they do get stuck. Like, we get so far up, and I don't want this to sound like I'm blowing off the entire thing, but we get stuck so far up our own asses sometimes.
Oh, yeah.
That we'll write off the people that are earnestly trying to help us.
100%.
I'm
doing that right now. I've been trying to tell my friends to go fuck themselves.
Oh, yeah.
And they're like, no, we love you. I'm like, gosh, dang it. I love you too, but can I just justify my position? They're like, no, we just love you.
You're stuck with us.
Yeah, like we're in it with you, buddy. Because, as bad as you feel about yourself, you're not that.
Yeah.
And no matter what you think of yourself, we see something very, very different in you.
Yeah.
And that's a huge thing. Like, they don't have to do anything. They just be present. They want me around. I'm like, what the fuck do you want me around?
Yeah. Which,
like, why am I here?
exactly.
Why am I in this? And it's like, because, well, we care about you. I'm like, well, could you cut it out? Like, I love you and I'll give to you, but quit giving to me.
Yeah.
It's the push away.
Yeah. To kind of weasel us back on track, but stay in subject. I wish I had those type of friends while I was dealing with my trauma and while I was in probably my hardest point in life. Right when I was like venturing into adulthood, kind of being an adult and dealing with all of this stuff, I was also I was coming out of high school. I really didn't have any friends. I was that kid that kind of like kissed other people's asses to be their friends because I didn't know how to bond and make friendships, and I didn't know that was a mental thing. That I didn't realize that I had a mental blocker that was causing that. So I spent most of my life without friends to talk to about these traumas, about these emotions. And I was coming out of that, and I was venturing into adulthood, and I got my diagnosis, and stuff was starting to make a little bit more sense. And then that's when, surprisingly, shit just hit the fan. Like, I was finally starting to realize, cool, I know how to make friends now. Like, I can make connections. I'll have people to walk beside me. And then life was just like, all right, hold up. We've got a lot more trauma to give you before you can be healed. So sit down for just a second. Yeah. And that's kind of when I got into, so I graduated high school when COVID first hit. So my last semester of senior year was spent at home alone with my family finishing high school, which was
traumatizing.
It was
just kidding.
It kind of.
It kind of is.
Kind of, because I'm stuck in a house that, like, I don't have that escape.
Right.
But I did have, like, I think I spent hours and hours alone in my room, which is also such a negative thing for people who already have those suicidal thoughts.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
That's the hard part for me. I've lost so much in my life. I've lost my children. I fucked everything up. Everything I was charged with. And there's another family. There's these kids that fucking love me. And these families that love me. And I'm like, what did I do so fucking wrong to mine that turned them so far away from me? It's really difficult for me because I know my heart and maybe they don't. And, you hope they do, but they see the evil side of who I am too. And you can call it what you want, evil, dark, whatever.
Human,
but for me it's evil. And it's terrifying. And maybe that's all they can see.
Yeah. I think being a child of parents who didn't necessarily know the harm they were doing, but they were causing some serious harm, it took me some serious time to forgive, and my siblings even longer. Some of my siblings are still strongly holding on to this hate and resentment.
And why do you think that is? You think that's a narrative from one side or the other? Because you talked about this earlier in your story, is like you had parents vipering against each other.
I don't necessarily think so. I think it's a coping thing. I don't think they've coped and thought through the things that I have. I I think it could partially be due to the still very negative attitude my parents still have towards each other. I think that could definitely still be a contributing factor, but I think it's just the inability to forgive yet. Because I know they're capable of forgiveness, and I know they're capable of coming back to like the love of.
But what happens if it's too late?
I think that's just a consequence of life. Like, I don't think that becomes, yeah, it's hard for the parent, but I'd say, like, at least noticing my mom, that the parents recover from it faster than the children do. Like, they accept the fact that this is their choice in life, and they're able to have their own choices and to separate themselves, but they need to move on.
You mean the separation of
child and parent.
Child to parent, but not in death, just in life.
Yeah, just in life. I think it's heavier on that child once that parent does pass. Because there's this feeling of, oh shit, did I never get to really forgive them? Did I never get to sit down with them and ask them why? I constantly hear people who have regrets of not sitting down with parents that they still had unforgiveness towards. Like, all the time. But I guess I can't speak on the subject. I am not a parent. I am still just the child aspect of that relationship.
Well, no, you can have especially as in an empathetic state, you can have, there's an ability to put yourself in a position of something you've never experienced, being empathetic. And I would assume that you are on the empathy scale.
Oh, yeah. 100%.
So maybe may not have the experience to speak into it, but you have something that you've picked apart in your life, and that's your upbringing, and you've put it in also into a perspective that you necessarily can't understand, but you try to understand. So you can have a 25%, like put it in statistics, fair or 30% or 50% fair assessment of what it might be like. And that's the important thing. And that's the whole thing. Like, especially, this is very applicable to suicide because most suicidal people tend to do it out of emotion. They're not like, they don't do an assessment of their life. They only see the things that have happened to them, the bad things, and not the good things. And that's what I've discovered on my own path, is that as I've entered into this, and I think that I don't have people walking beside me, fuck me. I've got a fuck ton of people walking beside me. And I got a lot of people who don't know the full story that want to make sure that they know that I'm loved. It's the craziest fucking thing. It happened to me today. And I was not turned off by it, but it's hard to accept when you want to do this thing, but everything is starting to pull against you. And this is the beautiful thing about this path. I don't want to die. I'm not an advocate. I think this is a sad thing, to be this sad, to be this broken, to have been broken by society in this way, and by parents and by siblings and by family and by peers, to be broken down so deeply, to want to die. I think that's a terrible fucking thing, because I've discovered this one thing about myself. I'm a sweet, sweet person.
Oh, yeah.
I didn't know that. It was something that was lost. But I'm starting to realize that I have more value.
Dude, the first time I met you, I was like, holy shit, this is one of the nicest guys I've ever met. I remember sitting there and drinking wine with you and just being like, damn, this is like, I can talk to this guy. Like, he's nice, he's understanding, he's empathetic. Like, he's a good guy.
Well, thank you.
I think in the time I would have never seen what you were struggling with, because I feel like you're so good at just being genuinely kind to others and loving that you just don't see the struggle in you, which I think was a huge thing for me, was finding that out. I was like, oh, damn, I would have never known. And I think that's so common with so many people that feel this way, is, damn, I would have never known that person was that way until it's too late. Yeah.
And I think this, for me, and it's funny you say that, and I appreciate that. I really do. I'm trying to be more kind than I am dark. And I'm always trying to find life instead of the death that I find every day. Instead of this low-grade anger and this low-grade depression that is always there, that is always eating at me. So I try to counter that with, I mean, it's a work. Every day it's a work to say, I'm going to come across somebody and I'm going to smile. I sit in my car for a second and I'm like, I'm going to walk in here and I'm not going to get frustrated. I'm going to smile and I'm going to be nice and I'm going to do this. And no matter the outcome, I'm going to be kind to whoever's behind the service of taking care of me. And that's really hard a lot of times. It's not easy, and I struggle with it. I struggle with it today. But when I do it, and I do it genuinely, it's kind of like a fake it to make it, but I'm doing it with the intention to be genuine. So the more genuine I am, the better the outcome.
Yeah, I think that's why I turned to comedy. Like, for you, it's I'm going to be a genuinely nice person, and that's going to maybe help me. For me, it's...
Well, even if it doesn't help me, it helps them.
Yeah, you're going to...
But it does help me. That's the counterintuitive.
Yeah, right? You're gonna throw this positivity out in the world, and unknowingly it rebounds back to you. For me, it's comedy. Because I'm a firm believer that laughter exists in all realms of emotion. Like, it is not confined to joy, to sorrow, to fear, to any of them. Like, it's free to roam about the range of emotions. So that's why I turned to comedy, and that's like what comes to me every day. Like, every encounter, I'm like, how can I make this person laugh? Like, how can I break them down to their knees, like belly laughing so hard? That's my constant thought. And dude, it helps me. Like, it is healing to hear other people laugh. Oh boy, best thing in the world to me.
Yeah, and that's oh fuck, that train left the station.
I know.
I had a good point, and then damn it, I'm sorry.
You're okay. I think our conversation got completely derailed in general.
Well, not really. I mean, this is an off the cuff. I mean, it's an off the cuff type of podcast, and we're still on subject because it all relates to the darkness of what I feel, what you feel, what a lot of people feel. You know, and the longer I go down this rabbit hole of what I'm discovering is it's not just trauma that induces wanting to quit. I always thought it was. It's not just trauma. There's so many things, and you know, I can sit here and tell you my story and tell you the detriment of that, and you can understand why I'd want to end my life. But and then you would downplay your own because it's not as bad, and that's not fair, because we're all, if you feel this way, your story's legit. Yeah.
I think it's not necessarily a matter of not as bad. What I've noticed with people, because for a while I was like, man, I had it way worse than other people. Like, I was dealing with so much stuff. And then I realized it's just different reactions. Like, something that might seem minor to you could be life-changing to another person. And to them, that is a wrecking ball. That absolutely killed them and set them down the path of like the suicidal thoughts and the suicidal desires. But to you, that's a Monday morning.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And, I'm discovering even now that, man, I really hope nobody has to go through what I went through or what somebody else went through. I hope it's minimal, because minimal allows you to climb a mountain at a lot faster pace.
Yeah.
You never want to be at this point. I came to end my life and I decided to start a podcast to help people. It's like, what the hell's up with that?
I've noticed with the part of the story that I haven't even gotten to, like your trauma led you to this like concept of, oh, hey, I'm going to do this now because I feel like it's something I need to explore. I feel like thinking...
It's not what I want to explore. It's that I've come to no other choice.
Yeah. Okay, yeah. So this is kind of like your last-ditch resort.
The next episode we'll hear a lot about this, but and from a good friend of mine that explains his advocacy for suicide in a very intelligent way. Yeah, it's going to be a good one.
Oh, I'm definitely tuning in for that.
Like, it's really, really good.
Okay.
I mean, super intelligent. He was supposed to be my second episode, but I didn't want to throw that in. It's supposed to be suicide prevention. So I didn't want to throw that in everybody's face. Like, oh, and then there's the advocate part of it.
Like, hey, don't do this. But also, like...
Right.
And then after that, you got me. It's like, laugh it off, folks. Jokes.
Well, we're not sure where we're putting you yet.
Oh, no.
There's mayhem to this madness.
I think it's...
And I'm the mayhem.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm your guest host, mayhem.
Exactly.
All right, so let's get back on track. Let's
yeah.
Let's go back to your school. So you didn't even really get into the school part of it. It was
no.
Like, how was your school life? Because you're 2020, it was senior year, right? Mm-hmm. You were secluded.
Schooling was hell. I genuinely am one of those people.
Didn't have a lot of friends?
Oh, hell no.
Do you have friends now?
I do. I have a really, really solid group of people. And I did not get them until recently.
How do you think you acquired those? What changed in you to say this is what I want in my life?
I kind of gave up the fake persona I'd been putting on for years. I kind of threw that in the trash and was like, all right, we're gonna give our real genuine self a try. And I think that's when I generated the people who actually care and who actually want to be a positive light in my life. Is when I let my own self show. But that was not until further down the road in my story.
All right. Well, how about this? I'm going to shut my mouth. I'm going to sit back and drink some wine. You tell your story.
Yeah, you do that.
It's hard not to talk to you because we just vibe really well. So it's hard for me not to be like, well, what do you think? What is it? What do you think about this? Why? And it's just
I'm the same way. I'm like, dude, what's your opinion? I've shared for so long. Jump in.
So I'm sorry. I'll try. This is one of the things. It's been one of my big things is I'm going to just try to shut up, and
that's hard.
I'm having a hard time doing that with you. So, go ahead. It's on. You're on deck.
Okay, we'll go back to the ending of the high school era. So there was that couple of months of just being locked in. And oh man, that's when the suicidal thoughts started to escalate drastically. they were really becoming at an all-time high for the time being. In life so far, that's where they had hit a peak. And I think this is when my mom started to give a shit about my emotions, or like notice. To me, it felt like she just finally like maybe cared a little bit, but I think it was her discovering how my brain worked, to where she started noticing my emotions and how I was feeling. And so she packed up all of us kids that still lived in the house, and we went out west, which...
For a vacation?
Not necessarily like a very long extended vacation. It was like all right, we're getting the hell out of here because COVID's here.
So kind of like a reset.
Yeah, we're going to go isolate elsewhere. So we went out to Arizona, and we went out west, and in the hopes to boost morale, I suppose, because I feel like everybody was just down in the dumps during that time period.
Who was with you? Your brother and your sister?
My brother, my younger brother, my younger sister, my mom, and I.
Okay.
Stepdad was still working at the time. Mom was not working just because she had, I believe, she might have been working. She just took an extended vacation. No, she worked. What did she do? I don't remember what she did at the time, but I know it was either she was able to take an extended vacation or had been laid off. I don't really remember. Back about high school and below, my memory is very foggy.
That's fair. Yeah.
There's a lot of mental blocking there.
Why do you think that is?
Oh, I think there's a lot of trauma that my brain, instead of exploring, kind of put in a dark room.
In what regard? Verbal, physical, sexual? What do you think that was?
I think verbal and physical, for sure. As far as I know, and I'm going to almost say positively, I didn't get sexually abused, which...
Well, that's good.
Which that...
And you never want to, like, plant that seed. So I'm sorry, I didn't mean to ask you that, but...
No, hold the applause. It comes later in life.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
I figured we'd get there, but I didn't want to, like... Never mind. Just keep going. Jesus. Shut your mouth.
All right. Well, so we went up to Arizona, and I think that was a huge break. I'd say this is kind of where my blip of bliss happened. So this is honestly where I thought in life, all right, these negative thoughts, they're fading, they're going away, I'm going into adulthood, everything's gonna be okay, I'm my own person, this is all gonna work out. And I had this momentary bliss. Like, I met someone who I still see as the biggest love of my life out in Arizona. Like, at a skate park. I was like, wait, who's Blondie? Like, who is this person?
Cue the skater boy.
Cue the skater boy. That was my bliss.
There's got to be a 311 song in there somewhere.
And
or Smashing Pumpkins. I have no idea.
Exactly. But because of that vacation, I met him, and I actually convinced my parents and his that it was a good idea for me to move out there to Arizona.
How old?
18. Just met this kid. Like, spent a couple days with him, and then online just built this relationship. And a month after being back in Indiana, I was back in Arizona.
So you're pretty good at sales.
Oh, yeah, that's what I do. Like, in a positive way, folks, I sell myself. Don't worry, guys. I'm not out here on the corner. This is a positive self-selling. Are you doing okay over there?
Oh my God. Caught me off guard on that one.
Yeah. I can see that. Well,
It doesn't happen often.
no. So I went out there and it was great. I think for the entire month and a half that I was out there, I don't think I had a negative thought. Like, genuinely.
Son, boys, what?
Son, boy. I wasn't on the multiple boy track.
Yeah, I said boys, but I was just thinking I was going California on that. But
yeah, son, great guy, great supportive, kind of like hippy dippy group of friends. That very like-minded people, I think, was the thing. I was very happy. My first real like sense of what love feels like. Just pure, genuine like bliss.
Well, yeah, it's that long, young joy.
Yeah.
In discovering each other and getting to know each other. I mean, you lose that in your older age. There is a reason why people should stay together and try to work it out.
Yeah.
When you get to where I'm at and you're alone, it's like, I don't want to try that fucking hard anymore.
I don't want to try that fucking hard, and I'm in my early 20s.
Yeah,
like,
I know. And that's the sad thing,
yeah.
right?
Yeah. But going past that, I got back to Indiana, and at this point, I had already had it set. After I got back from Arizona, it was planned for me to go move out to Hawaii. So I got back. I was home, I'd say about a month, maybe a little bit less than that. And I shipped off for the first time ever being truly alone in a new place. And I haven't talked much about Hawaii and what stage of life it kind of set me in. I think a lot of people think...
How old were you when you
I
were
was still 18. So much happened in the year of being 18.
Yeah.
So I go out to Hawaii, and everybody's telling me, "Oh, this is going to be an amazing time. Like, you're young. You're going to a state that's the most beautiful. Like, this is the place where you're going to thrive and you're going to be happy and all these things." And I got there. Man, Hawaii is where I realized I struggle with anxiety. Huge.
Why do you think that is? Because I'll tell you this, anxiety is a big thing. I've only experienced a little bit of it, and it's horrible.
Oh, it's...
So why do you think that manifested itself at that time?
I think I had already dealt with anxiety. I just didn't know what the label was for it. But being in a new place with absolutely zero connections. And I had already struggled my whole life to make friends and build connections because I was different. I was not the status quo.
I'm not laughing at you. I'm like, you just brought me back to like 5 years or 6 years old or whatever, standing on the playground. It's like alone.
Yeah. Yeah, it felt like that. I was like, okay, I'm coming into this place where everyone else there had someone they already knew. And I'm this fresh meat. And what's crazy is it was a super accepting group. But instead of my brain being like, all right, just be yourself. Like, be you. Like, this is a new place. You can be genuine. My brain just took over this mask of you cannot be yourself. Like, if these people find out who you are, like, they're going to hate you. Don't do it. Hide. Build a persona. You can't really share who you are. And that was a huge struggle living out there. Was my anxiety was crippling.
So what did you become?
I think I became this carefree, nonchalant, like, oh, I'm just gonna go out and surf and work and
be this awesome, cool, Jesus praising person. And at the time, I had no reference. Like, all these other people were like super godly and these awesome Christian people. And I was like, I'm messed up. Like, I'm not like these people. So I think I felt like I had to put on that persona of this like Bible thumping, carefree, living life to the fullest type of person. And it was draining. Like, I think that's when I first felt really depleted of who I was. Because there was a stigma to be perfect and carefree. So.
Right. Yeah. That's interesting.
Yeah, that was...
So did you go there to do a camp, or what's the Christian ties to that?
It was an internship. So it was a Christian-based internship that actually does really cool and amazing things. Like, for it being... I'm not necessarily an advocate for religion.
Well, not religion, but I mean, I speak harshly against Christianity because of the religious aspect of it. But I have really good friends that are Christians. One of my mentors he's been my pastor and friend and commandant for 30 years.
Yeah, you are really close with one of my biggest mentors, I believe. Like she's super hardcore in her faith. Like I'd always refer to her as like a Jesus warrior. But for me, I was never I never understood organized religion. Like, I understood having faith and an individual faith. But I never understood putting a label on it or putting a denomination on it or anything like that. That just never...
Well, yeah,
never resonated
it doesn't
with
make
me.
sense. Well, and it shouldn't make sense.
No.
Because here's the thing. There's, in the community that you and I come from, there about 10 or 12 years ago, I can't remember, there was a pamphlet. I was doing some homeless stuff, and there was a pamphlet in one of the churches, and it said, in the community, there was 136 churches in the city limits of our community.
That
of 14,000 people.
Is not shocking.
And they're separated by belief system. And that's the thing. That's not what the pamphlet said. I'm telling you, they're all separated by belief system because they all think they can do it better. And they're all wrong.
They all forgot the whole Jesus aspect of it.
You mean love?
Yeah. Yeah.
Each other?
He's
care for each other?
Yeah.
I mean, there's don't condemn, don't judge, don't consume, don't be obese, don't overindulge, they're not hell issues, they're consequence issues.
Yeah.
But they make them hell issues.
Yeah.
Don't kill yourself.
I think
it's not a hell issue.
I think they forget the fact that, not only is it biblically stated, so many different times that we have no right to judge anyone. Right.
It's our job to walk with you.
Yeah. And in the grace alone aspect, that's also outlined. All these different denominations have set all these different rules that fit their agenda. And none of them want to admit that right there in front of them is a book that says, hey, I know in the past I told you you have to be this way and you have to do all these things, but psych, you just have to be yourself and be nice, be kind to others, and that's it.
Just be fucking kind.
Yeah, just be
it's
nice.
It's not that fucking hard.
I don't know where the Scottish accent came from, but I kind of felt it in my voice.
I don't fucking know either.
Oh, God. It's the alcohol.
I think it's just the drinking. It's like, man, I'm getting back to my roots.
Right.
I'm not even Scottish.
Wow.
Oh, wow. Oh, wow. Anyways, back to the story, folks.
Yeah. So that's the rant about, and it's not all of Christianity, and it's not everybody's bad. It's just been so tainted, and it's not a representation of God at all.
Yeah.
Or Christ at all.
And it speaks volumes that I had this fear and anxiety to fit into this group. And it was a Christian group. And I felt so much fear and anxiety. And I think that
is not what you're supposed to feel.
No. At least I don't think so. I don't know.
Well, the broken should never feel like an outcast, but we always do.
Oh, yeah.
In groups such as this. And they say we accept you, but we can't understand your story.
Yeah.
Walk with me a little bit.
Yeah.
You'll understand. If you peek into my life a little. I had a friend, sorry, I don't mean to interrupt, but I had a friend when I was 12 years old, and I'll get into that later, but he was my next door neighbor. And one day I noticed he had bruises all over him. And I was like, we've been good friends because we lived next to each other. Unfortunately, it was a very short time. As soon as I noticed the bruises, the boy moved away. Like, his father was grossly abusive. And this boy was so nice. Yeah, it's horrific, the things you see as a child and the things that your parents don't know about, and the things that you suffer as a child that your parents don't know about, and then the things they ignore and they're supposed to protect you from, and then the things they do that they're supposed to not do and teach you otherwise. It's a crazy thing.
Yeah.
Sorry, I got it down a rabbit hole there.
Yeah, we really did. Holy
But
wow.
it's all like it's all relevant to the story of the end of the life that, especially for young kids, young adults, who feel all this pressure, and they can't reconcile, and we'll get into this later, but I'm not going to say it. We'll talk about that another time.
Okay. Conversations for another time.
Yeah. Go.
Okay. Now, after the Hawaii experience,
don't get me wrong. Beautiful place. Everyone should go there. It's got a healing aspect to it. Even throughout the anxiety, it was still, I think it's the purest I was ever been. Like, oh man, before I went to Hawaii, like, sex, alcohol, drugs, like, I'd experimented with it all. I think Hawaii was like a 4.5 month break of that, and it was just like pureness. Like, still the anxiety and need to fit in, but I felt calm. It was a weird time.
So you melded into that with friends. You melded into the comfort of having that Christian community.
Yeah,
basically.
So there was positives and negatives with that, but eventually I had to go home. It's so expensive out there that I got dirt broke, and I was supposed to stay out there longer, and ended up getting flown back by my mom, and just started life again as an adult with, I think, like 50 cents in my bank account. Like, starting as a now, all right, you're going at this alone, starting from nothing.
Right.
So, like, my life savings, at this point, were gone because of this Hawaii thing. And this is when we spiral into my years of addiction and years of keeping myself. And I'm going to preference this now. I 100% kept myself in the place that I'm about to talk about. Like, I was the number one thing holding me there. And I think it's just because I didn't want to admit I was where I was. I think it was a lot of denial. So I get home, and I've got no car. Well, I've got a car, but not a reliable one. I've got a half a car. I've got no money, and I'm living with my mom again, which is hell on earth. Like, me and my mom both at this point are like, all right, we can never live together. Like, we rip each other's heads off. It's bad. Like, I love my mother.
Yeah, she's a good woman. I know your family. She's fantastic. She's a little overzealous sometimes, but she's great, man.
Yeah.
She loves you guys.
She's awesome.
Yeah.
But you get us in the same room together for more than like 3 days in a row, and we will strangle each other. I'm so glad that when we lived together, we didn't have weapons, because I 100% think me and my mom would have just like murder-suicide, like killed each other. And like,
let me ask you this, because I know your stepdad really well.
oh, he's the best.
Oh my God, that guy.
I love him so much.
He's one of the nicest, best dudes you could ever meet in your life. Patient, kind, loving, caring, all of it. He touches. He's like a full package.
And he sees through the
bear.
veil.
And he's dangerous as fuck. You don't know that.
I do know. Here's the thing. I do. I like realized, and I was like,
yeah, he can get down.
I know, and he's so much fun.
He's like he's like the Jordan Peterson warrior that's been talked about. It's like ferocious as hell.
Oh yeah.
And he never has to use it.
Oh yeah. But he's like also this sweet teddy bear of a person.
Oh, he never hurt you unless you hurt somebody he loved.
Oh yeah, I know. I'll walk into that house, and it's like his spidey senses will go off, and he'll be like, I feel your anxiety. Do you need a hug? Holy shit.
Yeah,
you kind human.
He's one of a kind, man. He is one of a kind.
Yeah, he's awesome.
So anyway, go ahead.
All right.
We gave the old man a shout out.
We did. So I got home, and it was just rebuilding. And at this point in my life, I think I needed a vice. And we all have them. We all have those things that we turn to, and a lot of people are able to turn to these vices in a healthy way and handle them with control. I was not. So this is the first time I'm ever speaking out loud of this addiction that I struggled with. And in the community that we live in, I venture to say that this is the most taboo addiction. Up until about 4 months ago, no, not about, I want to 7 time. Up until about 7 months ago, I was struggling deeply with a very aggressive sex addiction. It was really, really bad. It was the only thing I turned to. Like, alcohol did not feel as good as the dopamine released.
Well, yeah, I mean, there's a few things in there. It's not just, there's physical touch.
Yeah.
And that's the important, and most of us don't get that in a genuine way.
Yeah.
So you're really touching on a subject that most that I've experienced, highly suicidal people or highly traumatized people, sexual, is it ambiguity? It's not ambiguity. Promiscuous, being very promiscuous. I've struggled with the same issue, But please go ahead.
Which it's labeled as being like overly promiscuous, or where we're from, for women, you're a slut or you're a whore for this type of thing. And
where men are more celebrated for it.
Yeah. For years dealing with this, that was my thought process was, oh, I'm disgusting. I'm dirty. I'm all of these things. And I did not realize that I was deep into addiction to the point where, honestly, I was probably like maybe 2 or 3 days in between max. And it was, if that.
Was it multiple partners? Was it like anything goes? Was it? So, and that's the thing, like there's so many different,
many levels.
There are so many levels, and people get, the deeper you go, the harder it is to get away from it.
Yeah. And it's such a confusing
and maybe
addiction.
I shouldn't have put it the deeper you go.
Oh no.
I'm going to have to cut that shit out. The farther the rabbit hole the farther down that rabbit hole you go, the harder it is to get out of it.
Yeah.
It's better.
Yeah, definitely. I never got to the extent of where you'll hear people in college where they're like 100 plus partners, or like, I never got to the crazy high numbers. And I think that has to do with my social anxiety. But I definitely had my rotation of people where it was like, okay, I'm comfortable with this person. They're a friend. Like, but it became such a degrading habit for me. Like,
yeah. Well, see, okay, can we go biblical here real quick?
Yeah, no, shoot.
So, the Christian community would say that that's a sin. Well, sin is just a matter of falling short of the mark. That's, okay, so let's just go there. Talking about sexual immorality and sin, we all fall short. 95% of the population fall short in one way or another. Okay.
You did it again.
But what's that?
Like
the burp.
Yeah, but it's not even a burp. It's just this weird rumbling.
Right. But the thing is it's not heaven or hell issue, and the religion calls it heaven or hell issue. It is a consequential issue. The more you give yourself away, the more you take away from yourself. And the more risk you put yourself in for terrible things to happen to you. Disease, rape, beatings. You just go down the list. The one partner is because it is, there's sanctuary in that.
It's a soul connection.
Well, it's not just that. There's sanctuary in it. There's comfort in it. There's, I know you and I'm safe, and that's what it should be.
It's the intimate bond.
Yeah. There's reason for the things that are taught biblically.
Oh yeah.
And people look at it as, well, these people represent this and they do this and they can fuck off. And that's God. That's not God. They've misrepresented God. And I think that's the church in general. That's not as a whole. Because, again, my friend, my pastor, my mentor has been a pastor for 40 years. And the second interview was his son.
Yeah, I actually know who you're talking about.
Yeah, and he's an amazing, amazing man. And his wife is an amazing, amazing woman. And his kids are amazing people.
They're so understanding and accepting. It's mind-blowing.
Well, they just love people.
Yeah.
They want the very, very best for you.
Yeah.
And it's genuine. And man, I'll tell you, and that's why I'm like, maybe I missed it. Maybe I had the people that were necessary in my life, but maybe that's also the result of where I'm at right now. They did walk beside me. They are walking beside me. I just didn't recognize them.
You were blind to it.
100%.
Yeah.
And now that I've told them I'm going to end my life, I see them. This is a whole freaking, what's that goddamn Aqua movie? Not Aquaman, the freaking Avatar.
Yeah.
I see
Yes.
you.
Right? Yeah. Damn.
What a good movie, though.
Great movie.
Great series.
Yeah. Anyway, go ahead.
Anyways, so I was battling with this sexual addiction. And in this community, you feel like there is no one to turn to talk. Because even the people that aren't necessarily those like full-blown, super Christian belief system people, in this community, it's so shamed. Sex is so shamed.
It is.
And so from one end,
it's a purity culture thing.
yeah,
Because it's Christian conservative, and not even contemporary Christians would agree with it. It's just, it is shamed because of the nature of it.
I didn't even know, honestly, until this year that sex could be an addiction. Like, it was so not talked about that I didn't know it was a thing. I didn't know it was something that you could be addicted to, and I didn't know it was something that people struggled with. And so, like, I had heard the term, like, oh, they're a sex addict. And
Well, it's generally reserved for men.
yeah.
The sex addiction.
With
generally.
the porn and sex and
Yes.
sex addiction
Yes.
is usually reserved for men, and people don't understand that it is a huge battle for women as well. And it was just, I turned off my love for myself for so long, and I put it in other people's hands because
That's a damn good point.
yeah, man, in the moment, at least at the beginning of the addiction, in the moment, it was relief. It was letting go of myself and putting it in the hands of another person and just breathing. I think releasing my own self to somebody else was just like, okay, for 2 to 15 minutes, I get
Right.
to, sorry, I had to throw that joke in there. Depending on who you are, like 35 seconds.
Yeah, I was going to say, we're going to the 30-second mark here.
Right. For that allotted amount of time, I didn't have to deal with myself.
Right. Yes.
I got
Yes.
that release from who I was, and that escalated so quickly because I was always chasing that release, and I was always chasing that dopamine high. And
Yeah. Well, and seeing, okay. Keep going. Please keep going. We'll get to that. Go ahead.
it got to the point where I ended up going to college. Yeah, I ended up deciding, okay, I'd saved up again. I'd got my finances straight again. All right, I'm going to go to college and I'm going to get an education. It got to the point in college where I had found this partner in college, and this was my drinking buddy. This was my my supplier for my addiction. I think that's a fun term. My supplier for my addiction.
Yeah, that's good.
That
caught me off guard again. Great job. That's 2 in one night. You go for a hat trick.
all right. My dealer.
Good Lord.
I can't stop laughing. Became the person that I also like partied with.
and that I went out with, and I got myself into some seriously dangerous situations in college because of this. My addiction was not enough anymore. It had been almost a year of being addicted to sex, and it was becoming not enough, and I was going down this rabbit hole of extreme binge drinking, recreational consumption of weed. To an extent, I feel like my biggest spout with weed was in college, but that's because I was grabbing any vice I could. Like, I went out and I'd go and party for like a Wednesday night till the following Sunday night. And then I'd go to my 2 days of class, and then I'd start over again. And then in the midst of that was partying, drinking, so much excessive amount of filling the void with sex and all that other kind of stuff. Like, I flunked out of college. Like, flunked. To an extent. Like, that was one of the huge reasons I had to leave college, because I was partying so hard and indulging into all of these addictions so heavily that I stopped going to classes. I stopped doing any of my homework. Started hanging out with the wrong people, unsafe people, like genuinely dangerous people.
Yeah, I understand that.
Yeah.
I've had baseball bats held to my head. I get it.
Sorry, Mom. Yeah. And then my first experience with sexual assault, which with most people, this is where you think the addiction would end.
I want to pause real quick. Who knows about this?
My family knows about this.
Okay.
My family knows about this, and select friends know the real reason I left college. Other than I could have pulled my head out of my ass and gotten my grades fixed in a couple weeks. Could have fixed it all and stayed in college. One night, I was just hanging out with some people. Just a normal night. Had some people there from another school. We were all just hanging out. Couple people were drinking. Couple people were smoking. I had decided to stay sober because I think I had like a big event going on the next day with friends. I think we were traveling and going to this big hike, and we were going to do outside stuff, and I can't be hungover when I do that. So,
right.
So I'm like, okay, guys, I'm not drinking, I'm not smoking. It's 3 a.m. I'm going up to bed. I have to be up at 8 o'clock to go to this mountain and go hike. So I take a couple of to me, they weren't friends, but they were people that I had met.
Acquaintances.
And my friends trusted them, so I trusted them. My dorm mates were out. And so I brought these people up to our dorm. It was like a living room and then a bedroom on each side. And these were our dorm rooms. And I was like, all right, you guys can sleep on the couch. And I'm going to go into my room. I'm going to go to sleep. I'll get you guys blankets. I'll get you guys pillows. See you in the morning. You're free to crash here. Take any snacks or anything you need. I'm going to bed. I go to bed. About 6 o'clock in the morning rolls around, and someone comes into my dorm room, and that is my first experience with sexual assault, where I was raped in a place where I was supposed to feel safe. Like, locked dorm room. You lock that door at night, and you don't think you're locking in the person that's gonna harm you.
Oh, that's fair.
And so that was a huge reason I left college. And weirdly enough, I'm not mad that happened. Now, today.
Well, how did you feel about it then?
Then, oh man.
What was your experience then? Because there's betrayal in that.
Initially shocked. I was shocked. This is the first negative experience I had had with sex.
But did you...
There's fear.
There's almost this nonchalant... Did you at the time feel like you deserved it? Because you're almost speaking of it candidly.
I don't think I deserved it. But I did feel like it had been a long time coming.
Really?
I had this weird feeling of, with what I had been doing and with actively giving into my addiction,
Right.
I was almost shocked it hadn't happened earlier.
That is totally fair.
It's such a weird feeling.
And that is a really good answer. Actually, that's a really insightful answer.
Yeah. So...
Because I honestly don't think most people could admit that. That's really tough. That's really tough because you're saying it, you put yourself in a position to, you almost set yourself up for it. And that's not intentional. It's just how you felt about who you were as a person.
Yeah.
Am I reading that right?
Yeah. I'm never going to say anybody's intentionally setting themselves up to be in that situation because I don't know anybody that would.
See, and this is important right here because there's ownership in action and decision. Should it have happened? Fuck no. Should you have been able to trust? Yes, 100%. But I get what you're saying, and I want you to elaborate on that because I think this is an important issue, and it's not that because I think when you feel bad about yourself, you tend to you go places that really compromise the integrity of who you're going to be.
Yeah, I'm a huge accountability person. And anyone that knows me and spends time with me knows accountability could be the reasons we're friends or not friends. Like I'm so big on accountability when 100%. it comes to myself.
Well, we don't have any room for lies.
No.
We've had enough.
Yeah.
So keep going.
So I think it was just my deep sense of wanting to be accountable for myself to where I had that sensation of, wow, that was a long time coming. Like I'm surprised that didn't happen sooner. And of course being the joking person I was. And I think this is why I think honestly my jokes are why my sex addiction continued for longer than this experience. I think that day that it had happened, that 6 a.m., about 12 hours later, I was already making jokes, which is so messed up on the grand scheme of things.
Well, yeah, that's very disassociative.
But
that would you say, or is that how you went, or is that?
I think it helped me cope quicker. Like,
how did you separate yourself from that so quickly? Because that's and maybe
fear.
Okay. That's interesting. Yeah. Well, it makes sense. Yeah.
I don't like to admit that things scare me. And so I think comedy takes away my fear of things. I think if I'm able to joke and make light of a situation, it kind of takes out the element of fear for me.
So is that like a self-deprecation in a way? The comedy, because you're just sexually abused or sexually assaulted.
Yeah.
Raped.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't want to go down the rabbit trail right now. Because I have a strong, like, against, never mind. Anyway.
I get your drift.
Yeah, like there's castration involved and shit like that. Like,
yeah. That's the dad in you for sure.
Oh my God. I'm just like, it fucks me up that people can do this to other people. Like I cannot. I understand. Okay, I can tell you this honestly. I understand the thought process. I don't understand acting on it.
Yeah.
I don't. Like, there are some fucked up thoughts that go through my head. I'll never give them precedence or ownership over who I am. And people let the sexual aspect of things, well, alcohol, drugs, sex, all these things control the narrative of who they are. And that's what you're talking about.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't think comedy was me necessarily trying to avoid this situation. I think it was just my way of coping.
Well, it's the cover up.
Yeah.
It's the Band-Aid.
It's definitely the momentary Band-Aid. Yeah. Anyways, that Band-Aid pretty much lasted me until I got home. I think I took about a month. And I think at this point, that was the longest since Hawaii I had gone without sex, was that month of just not being able to because I was afraid and because I had this fear towards it. And then I got home and I was living back with my mom again. And I think that need for advice just like came back. And it was, I like to call it my year of nothingness, because it was just me back on the same bullshit. Back on dating a guy, kind of using him for the sex, maybe trying to build a relationship out of it and making something work so that I didn't have to go catch another one. Yeah, it was the not good version of Fisher of Men, the non-biblical version. That was my year of nothingness. I was just like, all right, caught one. That fish does not want to go into the fish tank, so we're gonna cast. We're gonna try again.
Let's just keep going at it.
Yeah. So I like to call that my year of nothingness, because it was the continuing and not dealing with my addiction, along with after every new person, the suicidal thoughts, the need to end it. Like it was aggressive. It was bad. And I think it was because of the addiction. It was starting to no longer work. I was no longer getting the dopamine. And I let it get to
That's a damn good point, because then you start searching for other stuff.
Yeah. And I was trying to make this addiction work. I was like, this worked for me for a long time. Why isn't it working? Why am I no longer getting these emotions? Why have I... Oh shit, I've disconnected the emotion at all.
Yeah.
And so I think I got so far down that rabbit hole during this year of nothingness that nothing affected me. No emotions were held towards anything. And it was just, all right, I'm going to keep trying this vice, but at the same time, I'd rather just be dead. Like, fine, I'll keep up with this because it's all I know, but...
Well, hopefully it's the thing that kills you.
Yeah, honestly.
And it may not be the sex, but it's going to be the alcohol or drugs.
Yeah.
Because you're just like mindless at that point.
It's going to be the 3 bottles of wine I drank so that I can fathom hooking up with this person.
Right.
Or hanging out with this person. Or it's going to be the 7 tequila shots and not eating and not hydrating and not taking care of myself that kills me. And it's the act that you're hoping, man, I hope this addiction just takes me out.
Right.
Which
just destroys you.
Yeah.
So I don't have to do anything else.
Exactly. Crazy enough, during this addiction, and I think this is when I started to realize it was an addiction, I got pregnant.
All right, well, that concludes this week's episode of The Suicide Monk. Join us next week for part 2 and the conclusion, the addiction and the solution for this young woman and what she's doing to combat those things that haunt her and call her back in. And again, thank you for listening. And if you want to reach out and share your story, I'd love to hear it. I'd love to talk to you. And if you're seeking help, I'd love to try to plug you in. Suicide Monk out.